Hello, Mira. Welcome to the Bhairav Show. Hello,
Hi.
everyone. I have Mira Jago with me. She's the founder of a mobile app agency, and she also runs a co-working space for techies in Berlin. Welcome, Mira.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Good to see you again.
good to see you. Yes, thank you very much. And a brief journey about yourself would be fantastic, right? You founded Cuckoo Coding in Berlin, and then have been building various software products for several years now. And what exactly was your journey like from being a software developer to a founder?
Uh-huh. Yeah, first off, I was a philosopher actually.
Mm-hmm.
I studied philosophy in university, and after university, I wasn't sure what to do. And then I fell in love with the Berlin startup scene. I was managing a co-working space back then, just as an employee. And I loved all the founders around me. And I was thinking, like, what do I need to be able to put my own product to the market? And what was really missing was my tech understanding. So I decided, because I usually don't half-ass stuff, so I try to go all in. So I decided, okay, I'll become a real developer first before I do my own stuff. And so I moved back to Hanover because I had the possibility to start working in my father's company there, who
Mm-hmm.
has a little IT department as well. And I didn't need to do like university study or a million
Mm-hmm.
internships, but I could dive right in. Became a developer, started with C Sharp, switched to Android development, became self-employed after 2 years working there. I founded my own company, was just developing Android apps. And then I did the very good decision to switch to Flutter as soon as it came to the market. And a lot of big companies were interested in it. And I was the first company in Northern Germany to focus on Flutter and really also focus my communication, my branding all on Flutter. I did a lot of workshops around them. I wrote a book about it with a
Mm-hmm.
Wiley publishing house. And so I got lots of big clients and was able to grow my agency. And 2 years ago, we released our first product, which is a app for cities and citizens,
Mm-hmm.
which is now implemented in 25 cities at the moment, small cities usually
Mm-hmm.
in northern Germany. And yes, that's what I'm working on. And I'm also working on a couple of other projects and apps. Usually we do this as a service for other
Mm-hmm.
companies, but sometimes I also like to become a co-founder for
Mm.
our customers. So I also have some shares in some startups.
Nice. And you mentioned that you started using Flutter as well as your core development platform or rather language, right? And as of today, being a founder and with the advent of LLMs and generative AI, how do you see the tools are sort of being built or software products are being built as of today? So manual coding, or have you also started using tools?
hmm so I stopped developing like 3 years ago, maybe,
Mm,
or 2 years ago, because we had so many projects that I was managing most of the
hmm.
time and not coding. And I started getting back to coding half a year ago.
Mm,
And I was, because of vibe coding, I was very excited because I knew I don't have the time anymore to go that deep into coding again as I once was. But I still do know the basics, and the basics in combine with vibe
mm,
coding is pretty much enough to create an app, and it's so much fun because it's so much quicker. So it's something that I like to do very much. We are using Cursor in our company. We have some kind of starter kit app where we have some predefined MD files that
mm,
tell Cursor how to structure the project, if this is done or that is done or that is done, so that we kind of have the same way to do apps
mm,
throughout our company. And it's we never let agents run loose.
Mm,
So we are always the ones to prompt the agent and to immediately check what was done.
mm,
So this is something that annoys me a little bit. It's like always these 5 minute waiting or so until the
sure.
stuff is done, and then having to read through it. And I don't always do it very perfectly, but I prefer this way more than what I see a couple of other people doing in my surrounding, to just let agents run loose and other agents checking them, and then in the end just having to check the whole project, which
Mm,
for me is very boring. It's like you come into a legacy project and need to understand what was done there. It's for
mm,
me the most tedious part of being a programmer. That's why I don't like it. I prefer to have little steps that I can check immediately, like checking a pull review from a colleague, rather than getting into a project I don't know at all. And so far, I have not seen anyone doing this professionally. It's always on side projects that people are
okay.
actually doing this whole agentic setup.
Okay. And do you see that when you start, or rather when different AI agents start kicking off, writing their own code and analyzing things, do you see from a maintenance perspective it's going to become a challenge because of the immense amount of code base and the talk of AI slop, right, coming
I
in?
just I just feel it's a question of responsibility, and I don't see this going away anytime soon. Even if they at one point are 99.5%
Mm,
correct. Although I think that it will still be a while until this is the
mm,
case, especially in mobile development. But I think this only works for not so important things. Like
mm,
for instance, websites. I think in the moment I wouldn't become a website developer anymore, at least not
sure,
for like normal small kind of websites. Using Lovable is already perfect, and this is
sure.
really a case where I do not need to understand the code. As long
Mm,
as this is just like a website, not a web app, and it's just informing, and maybe also you're not, I don't know, a company that has 1 million website views a day,
mm,
then I think this is something that really can be outsourced
mm,
completely to AI. But in mobile app development, with state management and different kind of backends and APIs you can
sure.
connect, etc., um, I I feel it's like 80% good
Mm,
and 90% okay, and
mm,
the last 10% is really bullshit.
mm, sure.
So it's and even if this is less, still, like if you have a real product that's used by a lot of people and that actually is important because it people rely on it, like a banking app, for instance,
Sure.
you or also email, like
Yeah.
you would not want
Mm,
wrong messages to be sent to anyone
sure.
or whatever. So I don't think that developers can do this kind of whole
Mm,
agentic setup in such a surrounding. Although a lot
mm,
of companies claim they
mm.
do this, I don't really trust it.
And coming to the last part, what you mentioned in terms of the agentic setup, do you think your clients and companies in general, they're still trying to figure out generative AI and where exactly the possible use cases might really fit?
You mean our clients or?
Yeah, in general, right? Not just your clients, but people whom
Mm,
you talk to, companies, enterprise companies.
yes. Well, I've
Mm,
heard from a lot of companies, like for instance, a very famous banking app, that
mm,
they have only started using AI beginning of this year for the first
mm,
time for
okay.
developers. And then usually they only roll out to like 10% or so in the
Mm,
beginning. So I've heard this a couple of times really in the last months, that some of the really, really big companies in Germany have just like very slowly
mm,
starting to use this kind of things. Um, so I think there's still a long way to go and a lot of things to try out, but I also
mm,
think it's very interesting to try these kind of things out.
mm.
So I think it's a very interesting time to be alive.
Nice. And coming to the overall aspect of onboarding AI agents into the main business workflow, like what is your thinking? Like how exactly do you think AI agents or in general generative AI will become much more useful in real business workflows in the long run,
You mean outside of development
or within
or
development itself, within development,
within
right? Within
development?
development.
Um, as I said, we have like as a setup, we have some like a general MD file that kind of explains how we want
Mm,
our code to be done and set up. So I think these kind of guardrails
mm,
need to be done. And I think to know what kind of guardrails we need there, we need to have a bit more experience and also a lot of exchange between companies to learn from each other when it
mm.
comes to this. The problem is that the models are of course still evolving.
True.
Then we have political decisions. We want digital sovereignty. We don't want to be too reliant on the US government, for
True.
instance, as we
Yeah.
just saw with Fable.
Fable, yeah.
Um, so there are a lot of things to be considered where in the moment companies need to be careful what LLM to use, what to be dependent on, and then also how to guard against possible problems, which will be different depending on
Mm,
what kind of LLM you use. So this is all things that in the moment it's weird when people say that they figured out the solution there because I think we are all still in the process of figuring this out. And I find the most dangerous trend in this is that companies think at the moment that they need to be super AI first, and this is why they don't talk about it. Also,
mm,
the things that go wrong, because
mm,
if you say like we implemented this or we replaced 100 people with this AI, and then it goes wrong, you don't talk about it because it's
mm.
embarrassing and you want to
True.
be like the most digital, most trendy, most
Mm,
forward-thinking, efficient company. And this is the reason why other companies cannot learn from you. And I would really love, I know it's maybe a bit naive, but I would really love if we companies would just kind of talk about these things.
mm,
And I have like I have this co-working space here in Friedrichshain now as a hobby. I like to have like lots of people around
mm,
me, and I love to organize events. So we have done a couple of events here about AI where just developers, freelancers, or developers or CTOs from companies are exchanging how they're using AI at the moment. And this has always been like that. Like among techies, we are quite open about these
mm.
things. While
True.
on LinkedIn or between CEOs, it's always like a lot of pretend happening.
Mm,
So I enjoy this exchange with techies and really seeing what did they actually solve, what problems did they actually have. And from what I've seen so far, is like that this whole agentic setup is only happening inside projects, not in
okay.
real use cases, at
And
least in my bubble.
okay. And do you think that in terms of, let's say, incorporating AI and the so-called trend, companies are making several mistakes and then realizing, okay, it may not be right to incorporate everything at once, but probably take it step by step, and they realize it a bit too late?
Yes, I think
Hmm.
so. And I also think you always need to what I think is one thing that is talked about a bit unclear at the moment is
Mm,
that what is saved when you replace human work with AI.
mm,
And this is like a decision that you need to make with a company. So when the whole AI wave started, a lot of the current one, a lot of big companies would claim that this would mean that we all don't need to work anymore in the future. But the question is always like, why would any billionaire or any company help us replace our work with AI
mm,
without like why wouldn't they just like, get rid of us?
Mm.
So that's now another phase where people are starting to realize, okay, it's not about that we can all slack off and watch Netflix all day while AI is doing our work.
Sure.
Instead, if we are given AI in the job, also the outcomes are expected to go up, what
Mm.
we deliver, which makes for a quite exhausting, actually, day job, because
Mm.
AI is not really helping you slack off, but AI is always wanting your most intense work that you do, the
Mm.
decision making, which is really what bears on you. What's the most difficult kind of work? While the boring kind of work, like replacing German strings with English strings in a mobile
Mm.
app or something like that, this is replaced, which of course is nice. But if you then need to go immediately to the next task and do more
Mm.
decision making, this is not a relaxing form. So what actually should happen is that when you use AI as a developer, you would need to be paid more for the
Sure.
time that you do. Actually, should be like that.
Fair.
I'm doubting it will be. And then
Mm.
as a like on a company level, you need to see that you are now, like, a lot of companies think they can now throw away their employees because now AI can do the same job faster. But then in the future, they will want to grow again,
Sure.
because I mean, they compare to other companies on the same level. So they will want to grow again, and then they will need to get new people in, which is difficult and very costly. And
Mm.
also, there might not be enough who are comfortable in this company and using this AI because they have not been trained to. We have
Mm.
this problem of young people not learning the job
Sure.
as because AI makes everything easier, also during studies, etc. So it's a little bit short-sighted if you do that.
Mm.
So I enjoy it when companies like IKEA, for instance, say, okay, we are not gonna let these 8,000 people go that we can replace. But what they did is they took these people and they made them to interior designers, which are
Mm.
now running around IKEA, helping the customer get more out of IKEA and make
Sure.
their home nicer, which gives them a competitive advantage over other
Sure.
companies.
Sure.
So you always need to, like, I feel in the moment everything is a bit short-sighted because the CEOs of companies are very pressed to let people go and say they are using AI everywhere, while I think in the long run this might not be the best course for all
Mm.
companies.
So I think from the perspective of cost cutting, they might be just one-sided, right? I reduced 10 employees and I brought in, let's say, 10 agents to do my job. But in terms of ownership, I think that is where the actual missing factor comes in, right? So fair. All right. Okay. And another aspect is you speak at a lot of events, and then especially founding and tech events from a women perspective. What do you think, would be the advice for more women to sort of come in to tech, especially in today's world?
I think especially for founding in tech, we have some big possibilities right now. When I started to get into tech, what I actually wanted was to be a founder. And I looked around me and I looked who in this Berlin startup scene had the most money and power. And so I could identify a way to get there. And I saw that there were three kinds of people: the programmers, the founders, and the investors. And what all of the three had in common were that they all knew tech. Like, the programmers were deep into
Mm,
it, but the founders very often also had some kind of tech background, at least did not
mm,
have, were not like far away from tech. And then the investors usually were former tech founders that
mm,
had made money and are now investing in what they already know. And the second thing they all had in common was they were all men. Because the women, there were a couple female founders. I think 18% is in the moment the number. But most of them were doing makeup, tights, some like influencer stuff, something that can be sold through influencers. Or
mm,
maybe they were like founding, like if they were not startups, they were founding marketing or PR agencies. And all of these were fine, but like these kind of startups, very often they did not attract money from VCs, which is why even though we have 18% female founders, we only have 1% of venture capital in Europe going to female founded companies.
Mm,
And a lot of this is due to these companies. They're not bad, and a lot of them are profitable. And actually, what you get on the amount you invest is way higher if you invest in a female founder. So way more people should do that, but they don't. Because very often these concepts are also not like, of course, there's misogyny, etc., blah, blah, but there's just the fact that it's not so easy and not so scalable like normal tech companies, because
mm,
usually they're not tech companies. But now with with um, with AI, it's so much easier to understand tech concepts when you just ask the right questions.
mm,
So for me, I wouldn't have had to learn programming to found a tech company if it would happen now, because now I have a logical brain. I can just ask these kind of questions. I can vibe code my first prototype, and then go along with the help
mm.
of Claude always on my side. So
Oh,
I feel there's a big possibility right now for women who want to found a tech startup to do so, even if they do not have a CTO and on site in the beginning. So that's, I think, something that's really valuable. But to go into tech in general, yeah, this is going to be very difficult
mm,
to say what will work there in the future. I think to get that kind of logical understanding of how software work is still valuable. Um, but it will be much more about understanding product and also
mm,
communicating, which will also, by the way, be a reason why women will have it easier,
mm,
because very often these are the kind of soft skills that women bring into the tech world, which is also why I do enjoy working with women a lot. And I usually
mm,
always try to have at least one woman on a team, because it brings the team to communicate better, to also talk more open about shortcomings and stuff that they don't know. So it makes the team better. And now, when a lot of the team is AI agents in the future, it will be even more important to be very precise in talking, very open in talking,
mm,
and um, yeah, I don't know, very um, also understanding of the product and understanding of the user, which you need a certain level of empathy, which is also found in men, but more often found in women, I feel. So it might be a good time to go into tech in general, even if you're not a founder.
all right. And coming to my last question, what do you think the landscape would look like, 2 to 3 years down the line with LLMs getting better and better, day by day? Do you think there's going to be a sort of an overhaul in how teams operate and how products are built with respect to software development?
Um, I I always I don't know. This is really difficult,
Mm,
but my guess would be that, because I know this from experience from other fields, that the last 20% usually take 80% of the time.
oh,
So LLMs are 80% good. The last 20%, I think, will take longer, even though the growth is
mm,
exponentially. I think they will take longer than what we've seen so far. So I think it will still take a while. What I hope is I hope very, very much that the market will, like, that is now divided between three companies, that this will change, because it's really scary to me that there are some companies who have not shown that they are very moral companies, or that they own so much of the market and we are so dependent on them. So I would really wish for the internet in general to become a bit more like it was back in the day, more
mm,
decentralized, more open to like single-minded people who want to do stuff, and less controlled by huge companies, a huge platform, all everything AI automized. I would like the internet to be a little bit different, and for this, I just hope that we we'll have really good open source LLMs in the future, that we can host our own stuff there, that we are not depending on this huge American companies or Chinese
Mm,
companies, but that we get a bit of freedom and a bit of decentralization back in the net.
all right. Thanks a lot, Mira, for your thoughts. And it was a pleasure talking to you. And yeah, see you probably next time round again. Yeah,
Thanks so much for having me. It was
thank you.
very interesting.